I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, May the 1st, brought to you in part by Macrocin by Bimeda. Proven efficacy at an affordable upfront price, without any BS, end of story. That's Macrocin. For more information, go to macrocin.com. Also, Joplin Regional Stockyards, another big run for them, expecting about 8,000 head of feeder cattle for the regular Monday sale here today. They'll get started early, be on big bunches for sure by 8 o'clock in the morning. Lots of yearlings, guys, lots of loads of yearlings. Check out that sale on dvauction.com. Coming up on Wednesday, special cow and bull sale. They have one the first Wednesday of every month, but expecting about 1,000 head of cows there. This Wednesday it'll be starting at 4:30 in the afternoon after the weigh up cows and bulls. But they've got many pairs on there, a lot of fall calving cows on there, several bulls on there, breeding bulls. Check it out, and there's going to be a nice offering on there, including a large consignment from Ludington Angus. But don't miss the special cow and bull sale at Joplin Regional Stockyards this Wednesday at 4:30 in the afternoon. Fats are fading, feeders are booming, especially for fall delivery, and the calves still look cheap. And I realize there's some high prices out there, guys, but you know, as my dad always told me, which I'm back in the friendly confines in front of his old roll top desk, but he said the pounds add up a lot faster than the dollars do. So when you're talking about these lighter weight calves, there's a lot of weaned fall-born calves that are out there, guys. They're not that high on the lighter weights, and you can already see a lot of these lightweight spring-born calves coming in the dry areas. I mean flyweights. They're normally not available, but you're seeing them available in the extremely dry areas, especially up there northern Oklahoma and in Kansas. You can buy some 2 and 3 weight calves, guys. Yes, you got to be a cowboy to keep them alive, but that's what this deal is all about. But you know, a lot of cases, those even little light calves, those spring-born calves that are already selling, are not bringing $3 a pound. Well, you know, at $2 that would be, or at 200 pounds that'd be $600. You know, even these 500-pound calves, you know, they're bringing in the $2 ranges somewhere. Back in 2014, they were bringing $3.50, guys. I realized we had more plentiful forage, and the feed was a lot cheaper back then. But guys, you look at these August feeder cattle futures. And that's all important August, which most all those yearlings coming off the Flint Hills and your big grazing ranges, and it goes all the way up into the fall. Really, they're priced. They jumped big time this last week. They're priced at $230.72 based on an 800-pound steer. That's $1,850, guys. You know, even a $3 500-pound steers is $1,500. You still got room in there if you've got any grazing at all. If you think you're going to have some hay, if you've got some forage of any kind, look at these calves, guys. There's places you can pick them up. You can order them. You can get them. And there's a lot of money still to be made in there. But yes, you got to keep them alive, and that's the secret. You should know that by now. If you want to go, you know, up into the northern plains and blow your brains out for a perfect load with a bow tied around them, and you can just turn them out because you don't have any facilities and you want it, those cattle still look like they're okay. But you know, don't let these high prices on these lighter weights scare you off, guys. This market's going to stay good for quite a while. It's not, you know, I was talking over the weekend with some cattle guys, and, you know, during this run-up, we didn't see any limit-up days in our cattle futures, either in fats or feeders. It's just been a slow progression going up, and I believe it's going to stay for at least a couple of years. maybe 3. Yes, we're seeing our fat cattle market fade just a little bit, but that's just a kind of going back and forth with who's got the mojo. Right now, the last couple of weeks, your packers have had the mojo, but I think your cattle feeders are going to be tough to trade with this week. You know, they've let them have the cattle cheaper for 2 weeks in a row, and that's about enough with no fundamental reason for it at all, other than your June live cattle futures are just so far back of what your cash price is. And a lot of you people get confused on what I'm talking about, basis. I'm talking, the basis is the difference between your spot live cattle contract and your fat cattle price. That's the basis. Some people, you know, talking about basis, you know, talking about their break-evens and different things like that. But when I'm talking about the basis, I'm talking about the June live cattle that closed on Friday at 165.47, and what your weighted average is on your live cattle in the 5-area feeding region this week, which we don't really know yet because we didn't have any significant Southern Plains trade until Friday. And so everything that we saw up through Thursday was just the Northern Plains, which weighted average was about steady, but you get a lot of that 173 dumped in there, and it's going to back it up somewhere close to where your April live cattle went off the board in the 175 range. But we're in a bastard month now. I know that sounds naughty, but bastard is not really a bad word. It's just a bad thing to call somebody. But we're in a bastard month here, meaning May does not have a live cattle contract. They go every other month. The reason is because of that. They had tried at different times to have a contract every month. There's just not enough play in the cattle futures at all. And live cattle is traded a whole lot more than feeder cattle. But if they try to have a contract for every month, they just don't get enough in there for it to be liquid and to really work. And they don't work all that great anyway, but every other month. But when we're starting a bastard month like May, that they're going to juke and jive with that board for June, even though it's spot, and it makes our cash herky-jerky whenever people are worried too much about how the futures are affecting the cash. The cash is supposed to affect the futures, guys, not the other way around. But when you've got a huge, you know, it was $15 now, and you know, in June live cattle have come up a little bit, and our fat cattle cash market's gone down a little bit. It's more like $10 or $11 now. That basis in there, those are going to eventually come together. By mid-June, they will be together. How's it going to happen? Is your fat market going to back all the way up? Doubtful. Is June going to come all the way up and meet what we're getting now for fats? Doubtful. They're going to come together somewhere, guys. If you're day trading around there, I don't think it's a bad gamble to get on June on the long side. It's going to come up some, even though our markets have been fading a little bit here the last couple of weeks. It's still come up about $1 last week and $1 the previous week. So, and I expected it'll probably come up a little more here because it's going to have to get a little bit closer here. We're not going to lose $10 or $11 in your fat cattle market here over the next 3 weeks. I feel very strongly about that because your cattle feeders have had enough. You know, they've took a little less the last couple of weeks. Enough's enough. We know the packers are extremely, you know, short bought, and the carcass weights have been down. The slaughter has been down. They need product. They've just got to dig their heels in this week and kind of get the motivation going back in their way. So that's the thing that's going on there. Your feeder cattle, big feeder cattle, continuing to sell really good. You know, we're seeing, like I said, that August contract on feeders going up big. We haven't seen anybody really pricing any late summer or fall delivery yearlings yet. Haven't seen too many big sales on them. We'll start seeing that when we get close to 4th of July, when we have those big, you know, summer videos when they'll have a lot of those cattle on there for late summer delivery on there. We'll see that. But they're going to be a big price, guys. Those big yearlings coming off grass, guys are going to make a lot of money on them. But these, like I said, these light calves, they still look cheap. If you've got any way to put pounds on them, they still look like a really good buy. You know, you can order them from different order buyers. My buddy that I talk about, and I'm not just pulling him out because I want you to buy them from him, but he will give me the information. So this is what you can order some calves for. This is a delivered price to the Oklahoma Panhandle, Texas Panhandle, even maybe up into southwest Kansas there. But Ellis and Carter Cattle Company, you see your steers and bulls, the loads that he shipped on Sunday there, this past Sunday here, a 265 pound load of steers and bulls at $259 all black. You know, that is cheap, guys. 360 pound load at $253 all black with a little tick of age to them. You have a lot of come on to them. A 375 pound load at $248. 400 pound load at $245 all black. 455 pound load on the plainer side at $208. Some 535 pound steers from $205 to $210 on the plainer side. Some little lighter 5/8, so weighed 510 at $221, but they were all black, guys. That is cheaper than what you're seeing your fall yearlings bringing, weighing in the low fives at a price that's less than that. If you can't put it on for $2.20, yeah, don't fool with them. But I think a lot of guys could. 655 pound load at $196 be on the plainer side, and then a load of yearlings that weighed 735, $201, but all yearlings. On the heifer side, 355 pound load at $219 all black. 490 pound load of heifers there, $218 all black. A load averaging 520, $195 on the plainer side. Load to average 565 pounds heifers, $203 all black. Some plainer heifers average 580 at $189, and some black yearling heifers average 625 at $2 a pound. So there's places you can order calves around. You can go to the sales and try to pick through them if you want to, but there's a lot of little bitty calves being split off these cows because people can't hold them. They look cheap, and some of these other calves do too. Let's talk about your board for last week. April live cattle, which it's gone now, but I like to keep you abreast with what's going on in the spot. But April live cattle, Monday was up 32, Tuesday was unchanged, Wednesday was up 22, Thursday was up 92 cents, and Friday down 27, with April ending the week and going off the board at 175.17. That was up $1.20 for the week. The all-important June that's been lagging so far behind and almost entirely responsible for our lower fat cattle market the last 2 weeks, ended the week at 165.47, but that was up 95 cents for the week. August out there is even a touch cheaper than that at 163.77. Feeder cattle, May feeder cattle contracts, your April went off the board on Thursday at 202.67. So now we're on the May, and yeah, your feeder cattle are not every other month. They're in the months when feeder cattle are moving the most. So we'll have several here for a while, May and April, and then May, and then we'll go off into the fall. But on your May feeder cattle, Monday was down 165, Tuesday was down $1.32, Wednesday was up 85, Thursday was up $1.25. Friday off 55 cents, but May feeder cattle ended the week at 210.97, still at a pretty good sized premium to what our cash index levels are right now. That was down $1.43 for the week too. August, like I said, gaining big time. August feeder cattle up 537 for the week at 230.72. Your grains down big. That's a big bullish tone there to feeder cattle. May corn ended the week at $6.36 a bushel, down 27 1/4 cents. December new crop corn down 20 1/4 cents for the week last week, ending the week at $5.27 3/4 cents a bushel. May beans were down 39 1/4 cents, ending at $14.44 1/4, and your November new crop beans down 21 3/4 cents at $12.63 1/2. That is helping things, guys, quite a bit. Fat cattle trade up through Thursday of last week, they had only sold 48,200 head, but we basically had no trade in the Southern Plains up through Thursday because they all waited till Friday. Not sure if it helped to hurt them this last week. Of course, that was the best bid that they got all week, but this is another example of lower market, lighter volume. And that's just the way it is every time, guys. That's why we need to hold them, those packers, the big packers, accountable to at least a minimum amount of negotiated trade to try to hold this market position and find price discovery. Up through Thursday of last week, live steers and heifers in your 5 areas sold from $171 to $180. That was $1.50 to $5 lower. Your weighted average on live steers, $178.61, but that's all in the northern plains. Like I said, you can't count that anywhere close to what your weighted average is going to be for the week because the southern plains hadn't traded yet. Dress sales range from $275 to $286, $1 to $4 lower. Your weighted average on dress sales, and this will be close because we don't have much dress trade in the southern plains, but dress steers had a weighted average up through last Thursday at $284.17, down about $3.50 compared to the previous week. Excuse me. Now on Friday, Iowa sold 600 head, is all confirmed. 28,800 head for the week. They've about got Iowa completely cleaned up, guys. There's just not many fat cattle ready in Iowa. They just keep pulling on them. 28,800. That's a pretty good movement for Iowa. And they've been doing that here for the last few months. But live sales in Iowa on Friday, 174 to 180. Dress sales from 278 to 280. Nebraska, 2,100 head confirmed on Friday. 20,800 head in Nebraska. That's decent movement for them too. They just keep pulling on the northern plains because they want all those best grading cattle. They think they're in for a big glut of cattle here in late May, but I think it's going to be a pretty empty promise there because I think we're going to continue to see tight numbers, especially of the high grading cattle that they really want. But live sales in Nebraska on Friday from 177 to 178. Kansas 8,500 on Friday, and that's confirmed. I'm sure there was some more later after the 2 o'clock deadline to turn that in, but only 9,500 up through 2 o'clock there on Friday. But your market was just a few at 172, most all at 173. That's going to be a couple bucks lower for sure. Texas 2,900 head on Friday. 3,200 head for the week, 173. Didn't see the Fed Cattle Exchange beef on dairy. I think they were heifers too, quoted that they sold on Friday at 174.5. I think that's going to be a deal going forward, guys. These beef on dairy cattle, they're hitting all the high points on those grids, and your packers are really liking them. That's going to be a deal going forward into the future, I think. Let's talk about your box beef cutout values. They were mixed with choice cuts. Your weighted average for all of last week's sales, choice, was up 279, 309.30 on the weighted average for all of last week's sales. Late sales were a couple bucks higher than that, ending on Friday afternoon at 311.44. That's really getting up there on the choice. Selects, as you might expect this time of the year. Who wants to throw a dry piece of meat on the grill? 288.34 on your select weighted average for all of last week. That was down $1.45 from the previous week's weighted average. And your end of week sales on Friday afternoon were exactly the same as your weighted average for all of last week, which you hardly ever see that, or I've never seen it before. Choice Select spread growing, almost $21 now, as you see people really going after the better cuts of meat. 487 loads of cuts, grinds, and trim. Your slaughter, 620,000. That's not bad for some few plants backing off on Friday and hardly anybody doing anything on Saturday. Where are they going to fill all these orders for this beef? I don't know. I think your cattle feeders, the few that sell negotiated, need to hold off and see how hungry they can get. But 620,000, that's 2,000 less than the previous week and 27,000 less than the same week a year ago. Talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction ended the week based on an 800-pound cash auction steer up through your middle 12 states at 205.06. That was up $1.92 for the week. These feeder cattle are resilient. They're not feeling the pressure any longer from the lack of the fat cattle market position that we've lost here the last couple of weeks. But your cash feeders, all classes pretty much, calves and yearlings, selling steady to $5 higher in most of your sale barns across the country. Bluegrass Stockyards in Richmond, Kentucky, on Friday had a good sale. They sold a load, 60 steers, weighed 901 in the ring, Richmond, Kentucky, like 2 blocks off of the square. 60 pounds, 60 head, 901 at $190 in Kentucky, guys. How about your Zoetta stick-out sale of the day? Was Burwell Livestock Market. It was actually a bred cow and pair special, and not a big premier deal, but they had about 900 head there. Then they had several feeders in the mix, so I'm not saying this is extremely high, but it's where you could pick some up around, and they look fairly affordable for what these calves are bringing. Your young bred cows sold, and these were short bred because nobody fall calves up there. But young bred cows bringing from 18 and a quarter to 1950. Middle-aged, heavier bred cows from 1500 to 1850. On your pairs, young pairs selling from 22 and a half to 2550. I mean, I've seen F1 Brayfords down in South Texas bringing over 3,000 the last few weeks, guys. Your older broken mouth pairs, they had several there in Burwell on Friday, sold from 1650 to 1675, and as high as these kill cows and these calves are, that looks like a no-brainer. Talk about your individual quotes from all around. Sure enjoy getting to tell you about Santa Teresa livestock auction down on the border in New Mexico. It's on this side of the border. The cattle are already processed. You can get on dvauction.com, get approved, buy the cattle, arrange the trucking, and you got them. You don't have to deal with a broker down there if you go through the sale barn, guys. That over 1,300 at the sale this past weekend, including some selling really impressive, including 61 head of steer calves, well, they probably yearlings, 570 pounds at 240 and a half. Santa Teresa, New Mexico. They don't die. How about Winter Livestock Auction, Winter, South Dakota, 60 head, 954 pound steers, bring $196, guys. That is really smoky. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere over the weekend or late last week was on Saturday. It was your Macrocin No BS top quote for the day. Erickson Livestock Market, Erickson, Nebraska. They had 4,100 head on a Saturday, including 79 steer calves, weighed 655 at 253. And that's your feeder flash for Monday. I'm Corbett.